My wife cheated for 8 months with my neighbor, but I secretly documented everything and countered with her best friend. Now she lost her kids, her home, and $200K in the divorce while I built the family I always deserved. I'm 38 years old. I run my own construction company here in Denver, and I need to tell this story because what happened over the last 2 years basically destroyed my marriage, and I know this sounds weird to say, it also kind of saved my life in a way. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I met Victoria like 14 years ago at a Starbucks near the University of Denver, she was there with a laptop covered in stickers, drinking a caramel macchiato. I still remember that detail because I ordered the exact same thing without meaning to. And when I sat down at the table next to her, we started talking about, I don't know what, something completely random about whether it was better to work in coffee shops or at home. The thing is, we ended up talking for like 3 hours. I was late to a meeting with a client and I didn't care at all. And when I left, I already had her number, and this stupid smile on my face that didn't go away all week. The first few years with Victoria were, honestly, pretty good. We got married like a year and a half after we met. It was a small wedding in the mountains with like 80 guests. Nothing too elaborate, but nice. You know, one of those weddings where everyone has a good time and there isn't so much family drama. We didn't do a prenup because at that time I was just starting out with the construction company, like I was working out of my truck with only 2 employees. So there wasn't much to protect, and besides, I was in love, and the idea of thinking about a divorce before getting married seemed like starting off on the wrong foot. You know what I mean? Victoria was working in marketing for a medium-sized company, making decent money, and we were both building something together. Or at least that's what I thought. We had Harper like 2 years after getting married, and then Owen 18 months after that, and it was at that point when Victoria decided to leave her job to stay home with the kids. I was fine with that. My company was already growing pretty well by then. We had gone from 2 employees to like 15, and I could support the family without problems, so it made sense for her to focus on the kids while I concentrated on growing the business. For like 6 or 7 years, things were normal. Nothing extraordinary, but not bad either. Like the typical life of a family with young kids where you're always tired and you don't have much time for yourself, but you make it work. Victoria was a good mother during those years. Honestly, she got involved in the kids' school, organized playdates, that kind of thing. I worked a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'd leave the house at 6 in the morning and wouldn't get back until 7 or 8 at night, but on weekends I tried to be present. I'd take Harper to her swimming lessons and Owen to soccer. You know, I tried to be a good father despite the crazy work hours. Intimacy with Victoria was kind of irregular, let's say, but I attributed it to the exhaustion of raising 2 kids and managing a house. I never thought it could be something else. Once in a while, we'd go out on a date night when we could get a babysitter, but most of the time we were in survival mode. Basically, juggling work, the kids, the house, all those things that consume your life when you have a family. Like 2.5 years ago, Victoria started with this girls' nights out thing. At first, it was like once a month. She'd meet up with Vanessa and other friends from the neighborhood at some bar or restaurant. They'd drink wine, talk. She'd come home around 11 at night, kind of tipsy and in a good mood. I thought it was fine, like everyone needs a break from the family routine, and it seemed healthy for her to have her time with her friends. But then the outings started becoming more frequent, every 2 weeks, then every week, and she started coming home later, like 1 or 2 in the morning. And when I'd ask her why so late, she'd say things like they'd lost track of time talking, or that they'd gone to another bar after the first one. I started noticing that she was dressing up a lot for these outings. More than she'd dress up to go out with me when we had date night. She'd wear new dresses I'd never seen, did her makeup differently, and I thought, well, maybe she just wants to feel attractive and look good for her friends. Nothing wrong with that, right? What did seem weird was that she became super protective of her phone. Before she'd leave it lying around anywhere in the house, and if it rang while she was in the shower or cooking, she'd tell me, "Nathan, check who texted me." But suddenly she started taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom, and would put it face down when she was near me. One night, this was like a year and a half ago, she came home around 2 in the morning. I had stayed up waiting for her because Owen had had nightmares and couldn't sleep without his mom. And when she came in, she was acting weird, like nervous. and her hair was different from how she wore it when she left. More disheveled, but in a way that didn't seem like it was just from the wind or something. I asked her how her night was, and she said fine, nothing special, and went straight to shower even though it was already 2 in the morning. That seemed strange to me, but I didn't say anything. I went to bed with that uncomfortable feeling in your stomach that you get when you know something isn't right but you don't want to admit it, because admitting it means your whole world could come crashing down. Things continued like that for like 6 more months. I focused on work and the kids, trying to ignore the signs because, honestly, I didn't want to face what was probably happening. Victoria was increasingly distant, spent hours on her phone, smiling to herself, writing messages she clearly didn't want me to see. We stopped being intimate almost completely, maybe once every 2 months, and it always felt forced, like she was fulfilling an obligation. When I tried to talk to her about how I felt or about our relationship, she'd tell me I was being paranoid or that I needed to relax, that work stress was affecting me. But I knew. Deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to accept it because we had 2 kids and a life built together, and the idea that all of that could be based on a lie was too much to process. Everything exploded on a Wednesday afternoon like a year and 2 months ago. Victoria was in the shower and left her phone on the bed, and I was putting clean clothes in the closet when the phone vibrated. I wasn't going to look. Seriously, it wasn't my intention, but the screen lit up and I saw a part of the message that said, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you." And the contact name was Tyler, with a heart emoji next to it. My heart dropped to my stomach. I literally felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I grabbed the phone and, yes, I know it was wrong to invade her privacy, but in that moment, I didn't care. I needed to know. The phone didn't have a password on the home screen. Big mistake on her part. And when I opened the messages with this Tyler, I saw months of explicit conversations, photos that definitely weren't appropriate, plans to meet up, messages of "I miss you" and "When will we see each other again," and things that made me want to throw up right there. I sat on the bed reading everything, scrolling back to see when all this had started, and it turned out they'd been seeing each other for like 8 months. 8 months of lies, of girls' nights out that were actually nights in cheap hotels with this guy who, according to his LinkedIn profile that I looked up immediately, worked in finance, was like 35 years old and lived in the same neighborhood as us. I couldn't breathe properly. I literally felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And just at that moment, Victoria came out of the bathroom with a towel, wrapped around her, and saw me there with her phone in my hand. The look on her face, like absolute panic, followed by something that seemed almost like anger at being caught. Not for what she'd done, but for getting caught, you know what I mean? The confrontation was horrible. One of those conversations you never want to have in your life. I showed her the phone and asked her what the hell all this was, and she first tried to deny it, then tried to minimize it, saying it was just innocent flirting, and finally, when she saw that I'd read enough to know it was much more than that, she admitted she'd been seeing Tyler but that it didn't mean anything, that she still loved me, that it had been a mistake. I was so angry I couldn't even form coherent words. I yelled things at her. I never thought I'd say to anyone, much less the mother of my children. I told her how dare she destroy our family for some random guy, and she started crying. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, because her perfect plan had been ruined. Then, she said something I wasn't expecting at all. After like half an hour of yelling and crying, she wiped her tears, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Look, Nathan, I don't want to leave Tyler, but I also don't want to divorce or break up our family. What if we make this an open marriage? You can see whoever you want to. I keep seeing Tyler, and the kids have both their parents at home." I was in shock. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked her if she was joking, if she really thought I was going to accept sharing her with another guy just to maintain the appearance of a happy family, and she told me that many couples did it, that it was more common than people thought, that we could make it work if we both committed to putting the kids first. The audacity of proposing this to me, after lying to me for 8 months, still surprises me when I think about it. My first instinct was to tell her to go to hell, that I was going to file for divorce immediately, and that I was going to make sure she got nothing. But then I thought about Harper and Owen, who at that time were like 9 and 7 years old, and I thought about how a divorce full of drama and legal battles was going to affect them. I also thought about the fact that technically we didn't have a prenup, that the company I'd built with my own effort could end up split in half, and that Victoria could fight for shared custody, or even primary, if I didn't play my cards right. So, and I know this sounds calculating, but it was necessary, I told her I agreed to the open marriage. I saw her smile with relief, like I was an idiot who had just given her official permission to keep doing what she was already doing. And I just thought, just wait, Victoria, just wait. The following months were weird, like super uncomfortable, but I maintained the facade. Victoria kept seeing Tyler. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. She'd go out 2 or 3 times a week and come back late, or sometimes wouldn't come back until the next morning. And when the kids asked where Mom was, I'd tell them she was with her friends. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator, a guy recommended by my lawyer who specializes in divorce cases, and I told him to document everything, every outing Victoria had. Every time she left the kids with me to go off with Tyler, every time she came home smelling like alcohol or acting irresponsibly. I also started getting much more involved in the kids' lives, like I'd always been present, but now I was the one taking them to school every morning. I was the one attending all the meetings with the teachers. I was the one preparing dinners and helping with homework and tucking them into bed every night. Victoria was so absorbed in her affair that she didn't even notice that basically I had become the primary parent, and she had become the occasional visitor in her own house. I started keeping a journal too, noting down every time Victoria chose to see Tyler instead of going to a school event for the kids. Every time she canceled family plans because Tyler wanted to see her. Every time she came home drunk, and I had to take care of the kids the next morning because she had a hangover. My lawyer told me all this would be useful for establishing a pattern of parental neglect. It wasn't technically abuse, but it did show that she had prioritized her affair over the well-being of our children. The kids started noticing it too. Harper asked me one day why Mom didn't come to her swimming competitions anymore, and Owen told me he missed when Mom read him bedtime stories, because now it was always me doing it. Those conversations broke my heart but also reinforced my determination to get my kids out of this toxic situation. Like 4 months into this open marriage arrangement, Vanessa, Victoria's best friend, sent me a text message. Vanessa and I had always gotten along well. She'd come to the house often when she and Victoria were close, and in fact she'd been part of those original girls' nights out before Victoria started using them as an excuse to see Tyler. The message said something like, "Hey Nathan, I need to talk to you about Victoria. Can we meet for coffee?" We agreed to meet the next day at a Starbucks. Ironic, considering that's where I met Victoria. And Vanessa told me that she and Victoria had had a big fight because Vanessa had told her that what she was doing with Tyler was wrong, that she was destroying me and the kids, and that she needed to either end the affair or divorce me properly. Victoria had told her to mind her own business and basically ended the friendship right there. Vanessa was obviously upset about losing her best friend, but she was also genuinely worried about me and the kids. She asked me how I was handling everything, and I don't know why, told her everything. The fake open marriage, the private investigator, the divorce plans I was secretly building. She listened without judging me and told me she thought I was doing the right thing, that Victoria had become someone she didn't recognize. We agreed to stay in touch, like to support each other through this horrible situation, and little by little our coffees became more frequent. We started messaging each other daily, and eventually, like 2 months after that first coffee, we realized there was something more than friendship between us. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't feel guilty when Vanessa and I started dating, because technically, Victoria and I were still married even though the marriage was a farce at that point. But I also felt that after a year of being cheated on and humiliated, I deserved some happiness, you know? Vanessa was everything Victoria had stopped being. Attentive, caring, genuinely interested in my life and in my kids. The kids already knew her from before because she was Victoria's friend, so it wasn't weird when she started spending more time with us, and she was incredible with them. She'd play with Owen, help Harper with her math homework that I never understood well, and the kids obviously preferred her over Victoria at that point because Vanessa was really present while Victoria was physically in the house, but mentally somewhere else. Victoria discovered the thing with Vanessa and me like 3 months after we started dating. I had been careful. I never brought Vanessa to the house when Victoria was there, We'd meet at her apartment or when I was supposedly at work meetings. But one day Victoria came home early from seeing Tyler. Apparently they'd had a fight, and saw a message from Vanessa on my phone that was on the kitchen table. The message said something sweet, like, "Last night was beautiful. I can't wait to see you again." And Victoria read it. The explosion that followed was epic, screaming about, how dare I cheat on her? How could I do that to her? Especially with her best friend, that I was a traitor and a liar, the provider. Hypocrisy was so absurd I almost laughed in her face, but I held back and told her very calmly, "Victoria, you proposed the open marriage? You said I could see whoever I wanted, remember?" And she said no. That was just to keep up appearances, while she continued with Tyler, that she never expected me to actually go out with someone. That's when I knew for certain I'd made the right decision to divorce. This whole situation had never been about having a genuine open marriage or about honesty or about anything else Victoria had pretended. It had always been about giving herself permission to do what she wanted while keeping me at home as the dumb husband who took care of the kids and paid the bills. I told her I didn't care anymore what she thought, that our marriage had ended the day she decided to sleep with Tyler for the first time, and that I was moving forward with my life just like she had done with hers. She got hysterical, started screaming that she wasn't going to let me have the 5 kids, that she was going to fight for full custody, and that she was going to take everything from me in the divorce. I just stood there thinking, go ahead, Victoria, you're going to have a big surprise. The funny thing, and when I say funny, I mean pathetically predictable, is that like 2 weeks after Victoria discovered the thing with Vanessa and me, Tyler broke up with her. Apparently, the thrill and excitement of the secret affair was what kept him interested, and once everything came to light and there was nothing left to hide, he lost interest. Victoria came to the house one night crying, expecting me to console her or something, telling me that Tyler had been a mistake, that she loved me, that we could try to fix our marriage if I left Vanessa. I looked at her and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger or pity or love or hate. Just nothing. And I told her it was too late for that. She kept begging for like an hour, saying she'd do anything to make us work, and I finally told her I was, moving to the guest room and that my lawyer would be in touch with her soon. I filed the divorce papers like 2 weeks after that conversation. Victoria was in shock when she received the notification. I think she genuinely thought that somehow she was going to be able to convince me to stay, or that I was too weak to actually leave her. My lawyer presented all the evidence we'd collected during those 8 months. Photos from the private investigator showing Victoria entering and leaving hotels with Tyler, records of all the times she'd missed school events for the kids, my journal documenting her parental neglect, testimonies from the kids' teachers saying I was the one who always answered calls and attended meetings. We also had credit card statements showing that Victoria had spent thousands of dollars on new clothes, expensive dinners, and even a weekend in Aspen with Tyler, all with money that technically came from the business I had built. And the divorce process took like 6 months, and it was ugly. Victoria hired a lawyer who tried to paint me as a neglectful husband who worked too much and was never home. But the evidence in my favor was too strong. The judge, a woman about 60 years old who wasn't impressed by Victoria's dramatic tears in court, ruled that I would get primary custody of Harper and Owen, with Victoria having supervised visits every other weekend until she could prove she could be a responsible mother again. As for assets, the judge divided things more or less in my favor, considering that my company had grown primarily due to my work and that Victoria hadn't contributed financially to the marriage in the last 9 years. Victoria received a fixed amount of spousal support for 3 years, enough for her to get established on her own, but definitely not the lifestyle she'd gotten used to with me. The last time I saw Victoria in court, she looked small and broken, in a way that almost made me feel bad for her. Almost. She had lost Tyler. She had lost me. She had lost her kids for all practical purposes. She had lost all her friends, including Vanessa, and now she had to find a real job for the first time in almost a decade because spousal support wasn't going to cover the kind of life she wanted. She moved to a small apartment like 20 minutes from our house, got a part-time job at a boutique, and when she has the kids every other weekend, she mostly leaves them with her mom because she doesn't know what to do with them, since she never developed those habits of really being present with them during all that time she was chasing her affair. Harper and Owen are fine now, better than they were when Victoria still lived with us, but was emotionally absent. They go to therapy because obviously all this affected them, but my therapist says they're processing everything in a healthy way considering the circumstances. Harper told me recently that she's happy there aren't any more fights in the house anymore, and Owen asked me if Vanessa is going to be his new mom someday. I told him I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but that right now we were all learning to be happy again, and that seemed to satisfy him. Vanessa and I are still together. She moved in with us like 3 months ago, and it's been incredible. She helps with the kids without trying to replace Victoria, because she understands that no matter how terrible Victoria was as a wife, she's still Harper and Owen's biological mother and deserves respect in that sense at least. My company keeps growing. In fact, this was our best year so far in terms of profits. Probably because I was no longer distracted by a failing marriage and could focus all my energy on work and my kids. I bought a new house for us, bigger than the previous one, in a different neighborhood where I don't have to see Tyler jogging every morning. Yeah, the asshole still lives around here. Victoria is still part of the kids' lives, but in a limited way, and that's fine. They need to have some kind of relationship with their mother, even if it's not ideal. And as long as she doesn't hurt them or put them in danger, I'm not going to interfere with their time together. Sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I'd never seen that message on Victoria's phone. If I'd kept ignoring the signs and living in denial, and I realize I'd probably still be trapped in a dead marriage with a woman who didn't respect me, working like a mule to maintain a lifestyle for a family that only existed in appearance. In a certain twisted sense, Victoria did me a favor by being so blatant with her affair and so stupidly arrogant in thinking she could propose an open marriage and I would simply accept being her plan B while she played around with Tyler. She gave me exactly what I needed to justify my exit and protect my kids in the process. And although the road was horrible and painful, and there are days when I still get angry, when I think about everything we lost, as a family, I know I'm in a much better place now. Last week, Owen asked me if I was happy, just like that, out of nowhere, while I was driving him to his soccer practice. I told him yes, that I was happy, and I realized it was true. I'm happy with my life now, with my kids, with Vanessa, with the freedom of not having to walk on eggshells around someone who clearly didn't value me. Owen smiled and told me I'm happy too. Dad. And then he got out of the truck running toward his friends. And in that moment, I felt that everything, all the shit from the last year and a half, all the sadness and anger and betrayal, was worth it, because my kids are okay, and I'm okay, and that's enough for now.